Unit 1, Lesson 1, Exercise B.
I think it's time we started thinking about our future and making decisions about what we want to do when we finish this course.
Oh, Martha, you're always so serious. We still have 2 months before we take our final exams.
I know, but you can't just suddenly wake up the day you finish college and find a job. You need to plan.
You're right, of course. But where do we start? The course we're taking is general business, and there are so many choices like human resources, sales, marketing, finance, and so on. And I'm not even sure what I'm interested in.
Yes, I know. There's a lot to think about, but maybe we can start by thinking about our specific interests in business. For example, I think that you should go into marketing.
I've thought about that too, but I'm not sure. I suppose we should think about our different strengths and weaknesses in each area. A job in human resources or management would probably suit you. You are bossy. You just love telling people what to do.
Hey, that's not true. It's just that I like organizing people, and I think I'm pretty good at it.
Well, build on your strengths. I think we should also have a look at some ads and find out what kind of jobs are out there in the real world.
Okay, let's buy the newspaper every day this week and look at job ads in business. We could also go to some companies and find out what skills and qualifications are needed for each department.
Good plan. I think maybe we should go see our college counselor too. She may have some useful advice for us.
Let's do that. I'll call her office tomorrow and see when we can get an appointment. I'll arrange for both of us to see her.
Great! I've got to hurry. I have a class in 10 minutes. Bye!
Okay, see you later.
Lesson 2, Exercise C.
Career Counselor's Office.
Good morning. Can I speak to Miss Mills, please?
May I ask who's calling?
My name is Martha Willis. I'm a student at the university.
I'm afraid Mrs. Mills is in a meeting right now. Can I ask why you're calling?
I need some advice on finding a job. Can I make an appointment to see her?
Yes. When would you like to come in?
On Thursday afternoon, if she's free.
Let me check. Yes? That should be all right. Is 3 o'clock okay for you?
Yes, it is.
Fine. So that's 3 o'clock on Thursday the 15th.
Yes, thank you. Oh, and can you also include my friend John Jones?
Yes, that's no problem. See you on Thursday.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Lesson 2, Exercise F. Good afternoon, Martha and John. It's good to find students who are thinking about how to get a job. Basically, it's a process, and certain steps need to be followed. Let me take you through the most important ones. But before we even begin, we need to focus your search by matching your interests with your skills, abilities, personality, training, and qualifications. Now, I see from your files here that you are both taking general business courses and will graduate in June. The field of business is very broad, so we need to think of your particular strengths and what you do and do not enjoy doing. For example, if either of you likes working with and helping other people, you would probably enjoy a career in human resources. The responsibility of the human resources employee is to match the person with a position. Recruitment can be done externally, where a new employee is brought into the company, or internally from within the company, which might involve promotion. The HR department also looks after staff development, welfare, and motivation. In other words, here you try to keep everyone happy. Now, if that's not you, and you think you would enjoy the more aggressive side of the business world, there is sales and marketing. There, your focus is the customer and convincing him to buy, and for this kind of job, you need to be tough. And, of course, if you like precision and attention to detail, there is the world of finance. This kind of job includes the many aspects of calculating expenses, profits, revenue, and of course, investment. You're going to have to give this some thought, and not only about the jobs themselves, but the kinds of companies where you can work, which will make these jobs vary. In the meantime, I can get you started on the form filling, CV writing, and tips for interviewing. So shall we begin? Lesson 3, Exercise H.
John, remember Mrs. Mills talked about strengths and weaknesses? I've seen those on applications and find it really hard to look at myself and decide what my strengths and weaknesses are.
I know. My brother said it's a matter of finding the balance between selling yourself and what you're good at, but not making yourself sound perfect. In other words, you need to be a bit critical of yourself without overdoing it. Okay, so let's think and help each other out.
Well, John, I think you're really good at networking. You have a way with people and making contacts that I think would be very good in sales and marketing.
Wow, thanks, Martha. You're normally not so nice to me. As for you, I think your skills are organizational. You're very good at planning and seeing things through. This is definitely one of my weak areas. I think I'm just a bit lazy about getting myself moving.
Well, John, I don't think it's a good idea to tell prospective employer that you're lazy. You can't completely hide the negative, but you need to put it in a more positive way. How about saying that you might be considered a bit disorganized, but that's because you focus on the communication side of the task and you're working on your organizational skills. As for myself, I could say that some people might say that I'm impatient, but this may be because I have a lot of drive and enthusiasm to get the job done. I still organize myself and check everything as I go along.
Lesson 4, Exercise C.
Your resume is a very important document, and with your application and cover letter, it's the employer's first introduction to you and the measure of your suitability for the job. Remember that employers receive a lot of applications, so you have to make all your documents as readable and as user-friendly as possible. The layout of your resume should be in a simple font, 11 or 12 point in Times New Roman or Arial script. Your contact details should be up to date and the email address serious and not too much of an attention grabber. We generally advise people not to include age and marital status because some people object to being asked these questions. Likewise, you don't have to include information about your religion, though sometimes this question may appear on the application form. It's advisable to include all information about your work experience, including temporary and part-time jobs, since this will give the employer some insight into your background in dealing with customers and working as part of a team. Of course, give all relevant information about your education and include details on your involvement in sports and volunteer work too, because this shows your personality. Of course, you should read the job ad carefully and follow the instructions given there. Make sure that you get approval from your references before including their names on your resume. Any questions?
Lesson 4, Exercise F.
Jane, what was your overall impression of the applicants?
I was impressed with both, but for very different reasons.
Yes, I agree. Applicant 1 has quite a lot of experience, overall 20 years, but is a little short in academic qualifications.
Yes, that's true, whereas applicant 2 has an MA in HR and a very recent one, as well as a general business degree. It's very important to have up-to-date theoretical knowledge.
You're right about that, but on the experience side, don't you think she's a little weak?
Of course, but she's worked at that mortgage company, which has given her some experience on the financial side of things, whereas applicant 1 has had more experience, but in more general situations.
True, but look at the wide range of responsibilities he's had in very important HR areas at management levels.
But we're looking for someone who's a team player, and that's probably easier for a person who's new in the workplace. I wonder about the flexibility of a person who's been in management for so long.
Let's invite them both for an interview and keep these questions in mind as we're interviewing.
Good plan. I'll call them and make arrangements.
Lesson 5, Exercise E.
Can I send an email instead of a cover letter with my application?
Yes, of course, if an email address is included in the ad.
I know we use email all the time and chat to each other, but can I use it in the same way for business communication?
No, definitely not. There are certain rules you have to follow. We call it email etiquette, and it's important that you follow all these conventions.
Sometimes we don't use an opening greeting in our emails. Is that okay for business email?
You should always open with a greeting and end with the final salutation. When you don't know the person, use the same opening as you would for a letter. That is, Dear So-and-so. Make sure you add your signature at the end. If you're sending an email to a colleague or friend, you can just use the person's name.
What about length? I don't like reading from the computer screen, and I hate it when I get a long email.
I think most of us feel like you, John. It's good to stick to one page, no more than a letter-sized page if printed out. You should use paragraphs as well. When you look at the cover letter, you see it's divided into paragraphs. You should do the same on the email.
Can I depend on the computer to do the spell check and grammar check?
No, not really, because as you know, that feature is not always available on the email program. So make sure you check and edit it yourself. Remember also that it's okay to add gimmicky things like smiley faces when emailing friends and family, but never in a business email.
Lesson 6. Exercise D. Knowing how to prepare and behave is one of the keys to a successful interview. First impressions are based on appearance, so it is very important to pay attention to how you dress. Wear clothes that are fashionable but appropriate, and never show up for an interview in flashy, loud clothing. This gives a very poor impression and possibly causes interviewers not to take you seriously. Remember, before you go to the interview, do your homework and find out all you can about the company. Then when you go inside, you can relax and be natural. Wait for the interviewer to invite you to sit down, and be formal and polite in your opening greeting. Never say anything negative about a past employer, even if you've had unpleasant experiences in your last job. Don't be afraid to keep eye contact with your interviewers, and try to avoid giving short answers to questions. You can direct the flow of the interview by developing your answers. Lesson 6. Exercise H. Interview 1.
Have you checked out our company on the net?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Were you impressed with what you read?
Yep, sounds pretty good.
Are you interested in working for us?
Yeah, I think so.
Interview 2.
What appeals to you about working for a company like ours?
Well, from what I have researched, I think working with your company would be very challenging and would also give me the opportunity to learn and interact with experts in my field.
What kind of asset do you feel you would be to the company?
Well, apart from the qualifications and experience that I have, I also feel that I am a highly motivated person who is capable of working in a team or alone.
Interview 3.
So you're interested in joining our company?
Yes, that's right.
Do you know anyone who works in the company at the moment?
Yes, I have a couple of friends who are working here.
And what have they told you about the company?
That you're all very nice and helpful.
Unit 2. Lesson 1. Exercise F.
In the traditional approach to selling, the salesman was someone who did it because he couldn't find another job. Selling often meant sticking your foot in the front door, bullying your way into a home, or conning the person into coughing up for a product that they may or may not need, like a set of encyclopedias for the children. These days, the image of the salesperson has changed drastically, and a lot of preparation and psychology have gone into turning out a good salesperson. Still, it does help if you have certain personality characteristics before you start. A person who's able to quickly pick up on the personality traits of another and build on this insight to create an emotional link is likely to succeed at sales. Such a salesperson recognizes the indecisiveness of a prospective customer and helps them make up their mind in favor of the product. It's important that the salesperson likes people and is able to tune into their different needs and wants. It's also important to be a good listener and pay attention to the value system of the customer. It's also a good idea to sell products that interest you, as this makes selling easier.
Lesson 2. Exercise F.
Good morning. Can I speak with Geraldine Murray, please?
Speaking. How can I help you?
My name is William Cosgrave, and I work for Telefast, a cost-cutting company that will reduce your phone bill by at least half. I hope this is a convenient time to talk.
Well, I am a little busy right now. What's it about?
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope you received the brochure we sent out on how to cut your phone bills in half.
No, I didn't receive anything, but if there's a genuine way to help reduce my phone bills, count me in. Can you give me a quick explanation?
Certainly. It's quite simple. I can send you information on the different deals that we offer. If you're interested, just complete the application form and send it back. We have a special offer if you sign up this month. For just $6.99, you get all local calls free for 1 month. And after that, a 50% reduction on these calls. And if you make international calls at off-peak times, there's a 40% reduction and a 25% reduction at busy times.
That sounds interesting. How do I sign up for this?
Just give me your address and I'll send you out the information today. Remember, if you want the free calls for a month, you need to apply right away. Can I just check that I have your correct address?
Lesson 3, Exercise F.
Today, I'm going to give you some advice regarding what to do and what not to do when giving a presentation. It's important to remember that though your purpose is to inform and share with your audience, you should select what they can comfortably deal with in a single sitting and not overload them with minute details. The next thing you must ensure is that you arrive organized for your presentation with your notes in order. The content should be organized in a logical way, and you should inform your audience of this layout in your introduction. Make sure you do not wander into asides and unrelated comments. Stick to the main point. Also, it's important to establish a good rapport with the audience and to make eye contact with your listeners. Don't shout or whisper, but speak clearly and loud enough for everyone to hear. Keep your voice at a comfortable speed. Finally, conclude by summing up the essential points and then ask if anyone has any questions.
Lesson 3, Exercise G.
Hi everyone. Good to see you all here and thanks for coming along. I hope you'll find my topic interesting and not boring. Okay, let's start, shall we? Can you all sit down and listen, please? Right, now, where are my notes? They're in a bit of a mess. Hang on a minute while I get organised.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming along to the presentation. Today, I would like to look at some recent trends in the sales of organic produce, especially through supermarket outlets. The talk will last about 40 minutes and then we will have about 10 minutes at the end for discussion. So please save your questions until then.
So, we've looked at how the organics company got started, and we've considered one of their principal achievements. Before considering their other 2 important accomplishments, let's take a quick look at the management structure of the company. Now, does anyone have any suggestions as to what those 2 other accomplishments are?
Lesson 4, Exercise A.
Good morning, furniture wholesalers. Can I help you?
Hi, this is Craig Benson here from Hoolier's Hotel.
Oh, hi, Mr. Benson. How are you? It's been a while.
Yes, hasn't it? I think it's been over a year since we talked. How's business?
Very good. We've expanded. We opened a new warehouse about 6 months ago and took on 5 new employees.
That's great. I hope you're not too busy to fill our order. We've expanded also and need lots of new furniture.
Oh, that's great. So, how can we help you?
Well, first, I need to know if we can have a rush on this order, since it's coming up to summer. We need to have it delivered before May 15th.
I'll have to check with deliveries. Let me know what you need, and then I'll get back to you.
Fine. Right. Let's see. 10 double beds, 20 single beds, 30 closets, and matching dressers. That'll do for now, but I think we'll also need some dining room furniture.
Okay, that's 10, 20, 30, and 30. Let me call you back in an hour or so after I've checked delivery availability. Then I can get all the details for delivery if it's possible.
Lesson 4, Exercise B. Repeat track 14. Lesson 4, Exercise E.
So, I'll need to set up a new account for you, especially if you say you want to become a regular customer. First of all, let me have the name and address of your business.
Okay. The name of the restaurant is Totally Natural. and the address is 43 Riverside Way, Delham.
Delham, right. That's just inside the limit of our delivery service. Now, just give me an account number that we can use for all our transactions. With this number, it'll be easy to find your account details each time you call.
I see. Okay, let's use 1979. It's easy to remember as it's the year I was born.
Okay. We put TF in front of that, which stands for truck freight. So, when you call, please quote TF1979, which is your purchase order number. Now, what can we prepare for you today?
Today we need 5 pounds of cauliflower, 10 pounds of potatoes, and 8 pounds of onions.
Right. That, according to our codes, is 5 times number 5, 10 times number 4, and 8 times number 2. Items will be delivered first thing tomorrow morning.
Lesson 5. Exercise B. Situation 1.
Hi, I was in your store last week and I bought myself a jacket. I wore it for a few days, but I really didn't like the color. I'm wondering if I can exchange it or get my money back.
Situation 2. Good morning. I'm calling about the digital camera that I bought yesterday. When I tried to use it today, the zoom lens didn't work. I'd like to return the camera and get a replacement, or talk with someone who knows something about the camera, who can perhaps guide me through the process. Situation 3.
Hi there. I just picked up a TV at your store yesterday afternoon, and when I was taking it out of the car, it sort of accidentally fell. It looks okay, but the picture is pretty fuzzy. Do you think that I could have someone look at it? Or get a replacement? Or a refund?
Lesson 5. Exercise E. Situation 1.
Good afternoon. I would like to speak with the manager, please.
Why? What's your problem?
Well, I bought this DVD here 3 weeks ago, and have had several problems with it in that short time. Each time I bring it back here, someone looks at it, adjusts something, and says it's okay. But then, when I get home, it doesn't work.
Are you sure you know how to operate this machine?
Young man, I've been a customer at this store for several years, and no one has ever spoken to me like this before.
Okay. I'll get someone to have a look at it.
Situation 2.
I'm returning this jacket because it's not really the right fit and it's sort of heavy.
I'm very sorry, sir, but that jacket was bought during the sales, and the store policy is no refunds on goods bought during sales.
Oh, be reasonable. It's just a jacket. I'm sure you still have some others inside. Surely you can exchange just one jacket.
Sir, it's impossible. Our policy clearly states no exchange on sale items. I can't do anything to help you, I'm afraid.
Oh, this is ridiculous. I'm never going to shop here again.
Situation 3.
I just bought this new TV, and when I got home it didn't work.
Okay, if you could wait a moment, I'll have someone look at it.
Look, I've been waiting for 5 minutes. I can't stand here all day. I have to get back to work. Listen to me. I need this TV to be fixed right now, or I need a replacement.
Please stop yelling. The service manager is busy right now, and so you'll have to wait.
I'm not going to put up with any more of this. Call the manager right now.
Lesson 6. Exercise E.
The internet has expanded our choices of where and when to shop, but it also has its hazards. Here are some things that you should think about before becoming an internet shopper. It is safer to buy from reputable companies, so do a little research on the company before making your purchase. Check carefully all the contact details of the company. Look for a street address and a landline telephone number, not just an email address. Also consider any extra costs, things like shipping costs and taxes that you may have to pay, and decide if it's actually worthwhile buying online. Generally, people pay for online goods with credit cards. Make sure that the site is secure. At the bottom of the page, you should see a small S, which stands for Secure, along with a picture of a padlock. Make sure you keep copies of the order form and the acknowledgement notice that you receive. When you buy online, you have the same legal rights as when you buy in a store. However, it's very important to read all the terms and conditions of the sale before you buy. Always check your bank statement after making a purchase and make sure that only the amount that you paid has been deducted from your balance. Each country has its own consumer affairs offices that should be able to advise you if you find that you've been cheated while shopping online. The most important thing to remember is, if in doubt, don't buy.
Unit 3, Lesson 1, Exercise E.
Companies advertise their products for three main reasons. The first reason is simply to inform the public that a particular product or service exists. This type of advertisement gives factual information about a product, provides price details, and information about any special offers. This is called informative advertising, and it concentrates on just giving the essential details. It's often used to give information about household products that people buy regularly. The second type is persuasive advertising, and its function is to convince people to buy a product or service. The advertisement tries to achieve this by telling people that the product or service will bring beneficial changes to their lives. This often happens with cosmetic products, where a person is persuaded that a certain face cream will rid them of wrinkles and make their skin look fresh and young. Services like cosmetic surgery work on the same principle. The third type of advertising is known as competitive advertising, because the purpose here is to convince people that a particular company's products or services are better than any other produced by its competitors. In some countries, companies are allowed to mention their competitors by name in their advertising. In other countries, this is not permitted.
Lesson 2, Exercise C.
Branding, like marketing, is as old as the concepts of ownership and selling. In former times, people branded an item simply to show who the owner was, and, of course, this is still one reason behind branding. In the past, a mark was placed on the ear of a sheep or cow to identify the owner. In the same way, the earliest craftsmen put a simple mark on a product to show ownership. This was often just the craftsman's name, in the same way that a painter still signs a painting. The marketplace was somewhere you went to get your practical needs, and the sign or brand indicated the person who could satisfy those needs. In the 21st century, brands are more likely to signal the availability of a product, but their role has changed quite a lot. While still indicating where a product can be found, the scope of the brand is much wider now, and is often associated with certain qualities the product may have. In addition, certain brands have become status symbols, particularly among young people. This can be seen in all kinds of goods, such as sportswear, shoes, t-shirts, and even in services where a hotel brand does not indicate just a bed for the night, but a whole host of associated luxuries.
Lesson 3, Exercise E. Good morning, everyone. Well, I think we are all clear by now about the importance of knowing as much as possible about potential customers and possible competition from other companies when we set out to market a new product. Today, I want to look at the different ways we collect data. We want to find out all we can about consumers' income, likes, dislikes, and where they live. We also need to investigate our competitors' prices and methods of advertising. There are two ways of getting this information. The first is through primary research, and this involves getting out there and talking to people. We prepare a questionnaire that considers the likes, dislikes, and income levels of consumers, and we try to find out what newspapers and magazines they read. This information can also be gathered via a phone interview. We can also make note of what shoppers buy when they go out, as well as using television panels where consumers and retailers give feedback. The other type of research requires less physical effort and is often referred to as secondary research. Sales reports and trade figures are analyzed for existing information. Magazines, newspapers, and government publications as well as internet searches provide useful data. So, let's consider some of these in more detail. Lesson 4, Exercise C. Company 1.
Joe Mason, a computer programmer, hit upon a very marketable piece of software almost by accident. Along with his wife Alice, he set up a company to market software that facilitates online photo sharing. Since its launch, the program has attracted interest from organizations that want to include it on their websites. The Masons have adapted the software so that it can be installed on other web servers and have begun to sell licenses.
Company 2.
A major software manufacturer is about to launch its new operating system. It's already launched a major marketing campaign with the aim of convincing people to line up at retail stores in anticipation of the product on the morning of its launch. The company has already convinced a celebrity talk show host to include their product on her list of favorite things, and it hopes that, through this massive campaign, within 2 years, over 400 million users will be using its software.
Company 3.
Televised sporting events have become big business. At the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, a leading sportswear company conducted a successful and relatively inexpensive advertising campaign for their products. Instead of paying the official $50 million sponsorship fee, it plastered the city with billboard ads, gave out free banners to spectators, and set up a huge promotion center near the principal stadium, knowing that all these things would inevitably appear during the broadcast of the event.
Company 4.
Many of the people who use a company's free email service become, in one way or another, involuntary advertisers for that company. The number of users of one of the leading free email services grew from 0 to 12 million in just 18 months. Since then, numbers have increased to over 100 million users. Ads appear in email messages with the apparent endorsement of the sender, and they reach a potentially huge number of email users.
Lesson 5. Exercise B.
I hate these monthly meetings. They are just a waste of time, even though I know it does give us a chance to talk things over face to face. Today I have a lot of work on my desk.
Well, you do have a point, Tom, but I think meetings do help us clear up some ambiguous issues that might be troubling people. You have to admit that in this company, management is very fair, and through these meetings they keep us well briefed on new proposals and developments.
Well, I guess you're right. I've worked at other places where staff is never included in decision-making, but that's certainly not true here. And we do have lots of opportunities to give our feedback.
I'm glad you're coming round to seeing the benefits, Tom. Remember also, we get a chance to be involved in the planning stages and input our views on the whole process.
Okay, got it. But these meetings always come at a bad time for me, when I have lots of work going on.
Lesson 5. Exercise F.
Lisa, I'd really like to get this agenda ready and out to the staff by tomorrow morning. Can you type it up for me, please?
Certainly, Mr. Steiner. Could we just run through the items that you want me to include?
Well, the first thing is to get the minutes of the last meeting out of the way and any questions that might crop up from those.
Don't forget that there are 2 new staff members to be introduced.
Yes, that's important. Thank you for reminding me. We'll welcome them immediately after the apologies for absences.
Right. Okay. I've got all that.
Well, that takes care of the formalities. Now the main points of business.
I suppose the first item will be organizing the marketing research?
Well, no, not quite yet. I'd like to discuss financial matters first with a brief outline of budgetary considerations.
I see.
Next, we should look at target markets and forecasts for sales.
So, where should I put the market research?
That's next, followed by a discussion of a timetable for research and analysis.
Okay, and we finish up with any other business, right?
Right. So, Lisa, can you take care of it from here? Please let me know when you've distributed it to the staff.
Certainly, Mr. Steiner. Lesson 6. Exercise C.
The violation of intellectual property rights and the illegal copying of all kinds of goods from cigarettes to medicines really took off in the 1990s and has become an issue of major concern to companies and governments around the world. Counterfeiting is worrying multinationals as it now makes up between 5 and 7% of all global merchandise trade, giving rise to $512 billion in lost trade annually. The World Health Organization says that about 10% of the world's medicines are counterfeit.
Lesson 6. Exercise D.
Here are some examples of the kinds of fake goods that have been found in the marketplace. A woman in New York recently phoned her local drugstore to complain about the bitter taste from the cholesterol-lowering Lipitor pills that she was taking. On examination in a lab, the pills turned out to be counterfeits. Over the next 2 months, 16.5 million pills were withdrawn from warehouse and pharmacy shelves, resulting in a huge loss to the company. A tip-off in Brazil led to the discovery of a large number of bogus Hewlett-Packard printer cartridges ready for the marketplace. Police also picked up information from the same source that led to the seizure of more than $1 million worth of other counterfeit goods. In a Chinese warehouse, authorities came across a store of counterfeit Buick windshields ready for the export market. China also sells Honda fake parts for half the price of the original. Secret Service agents in Guam discovered bogus North Korean-made pharmaceuticals, cigarettes, and counterfeit $100 bills. French customs recently picked up more than 11,000 fake parts for Nokia cell phones, batteries, and phone covers.
Lesson 6. Exercise E.
And the list goes on and on. What can companies and governments do to control this violation? China is by far the greatest violator of property rights, and 2/3 of the world's fake goods are turned out there. However, the Chinese government, under pressure from international groups, is now beginning to clamp down on illegal copying. As Chinese companies begin to experience violations of their copyrights from within China, they are starting to demand more regulations. In addition, multinational companies are putting pressure on the governments of violating countries to make them control the counterfeiters. Goods are being electronically tagged, and companies are sending detectives around the world to track down companies and countries involved in the production of fake goods.
Unit 4. Lesson 1. Exercise B.
Hi, Michelle. How you doing?
Hi, Roger.
So, are you ready for the independent life?
Well, you know how I was really looking forward to getting away from home? Well, now I'm beginning to wonder how I'll manage my money and survive on my own. It's easy when your parents pay all the bills, but it's going to be different from here on.
Yeah, I know. My rent is $400 a month, and that's in a shared house.
Mine's the same, but that includes all bills.
Really? Not for me. I have to pay all utilities separately. It'll be about $50 a month. My parents are going to pay for my tuition this semester, about $500.
Mine too. I think it costs the same as yours. You know, I think the toughest thing to manage is going to be food. There's always the temptation to eat fast food, but that is so unhealthy. I am going to try to follow a healthy diet. My mum thinks food will cost about $100 a week.
I want to keep my food expenses down to about $70 a week. I am also going to buy a bike and cycle to college. That way, I won't have any transportation expenses.
My accommodation is only a 5-minute walk from the college, so transport expenses will only be train fares home, which is about $50 a month.
I bought enough clothes for the term, so I don't really expect to have to spend anything on clothes.
Same with me. You know, I heard books can be quite expensive. We might have to spend like $300 on textbooks.
That's a lot. I'm going to try to find some used books. I'd like to keep the cost of books to around $150. And what about recreation? I definitely need to go to the movies like at least once a week. I'm going to budget for about $30 at first.
Me too, and then a little more after I find a part-time job. Anyway, I've got to hurry now. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. See you, Michelle.
Lesson 1. Exercise D.
Doing an MBA is definitely expensive. I need to prepare a personal budget. I should plan my expenses so I don't end up broke in the middle of the year. First, I'll calculate my expenses so I can figure out how much I'll have for the year. It's a good thing I worked in the summer. The $2,500 I managed to save will definitely be useful, along with the $1,000 I have in my savings account. I think I can count on about $250 a month from my part-time job at the library. So that gives me another $2,500 for the year. I really don't want to take any money from the family, but they have agreed to cover any medical and dental expenses. Hopefully, there won't be any. Then there's the $1,000 from the grant, along with payment of the tuition fees, which is a great bonus. I think I'll go ahead and sell my car. I won't need it this year, and that should get me another $2,000.
Lesson 1. Exercise E.
Right. Now the hard part, expenses. First thing every month is the rent, $400 a month. I'll have to stay in the shared house because I just can't afford a place on my own. Books and supplies, it seems, will cost about $300 in total, and I'll probably need about $350 a month for food and household supplies. I'll definitely have to cut out shopping for new clothes and limit myself to about $50 a month for entertainment, and let's say $40 a month for phone, and just $20 for transportation, since I can walk to most destinations. So, if my calculations are correct, that gives me $9,000 income and expenses of over $11,000. So, I'll need to borrow to deal with the difference. I'll go to the bank early next week and request a loan of $3,000. I can defer payment until I graduate. I'd better find a good job after this.
Lesson 2. Exercise F.
Good morning. Can I help you?
Yes, my name is Chris Brown. I have an account here, and I'd like to apply for a credit card.
Fine. Can you give me your account number and let me check your history with us?
Here it is. I've had an account here for the last 4 years.
I see. Well, from what I see here, Chris, your credit history is good. Just one small loan that was paid back on time. Of course, you know that as a student, there are some restrictions on the type of credit card you can have.
Yes, I'm aware of that, but I really need a card for booking airline tickets and things like that.
Okay, well, the first thing to do is fill out this form. Then I have to give it to the manager for his approval, but that shouldn't be a problem.
Great! Now, can you explain about the different repayment options that are available?
Certainly. You can choose to make a partial payment each month on what you owe on the card, or you can pay the balance in full each month. Or you can pay a fixed amount in equal payments at fixed intervals. Personally, I would recommend making a partial payment each month on what you owe.
Fine, but what about the charges and interest rates on the card? I've heard that they can be quite high.
Our bank charges a fixed annual charge of $40 for using the card. If you don't pay the minimum amount due within the given time limit, the interest rate here is 18%. The most important thing is to pay off the minimum amount due on time.
Okay, well, let's set it up so that the minimum amount due is automatically deducted from my checking account.
Certainly. So, if you could just fill out this...
Lesson 3. Exercise C. Financial Director.
The company's fixed assets consist of buildings worth $400,000, various types of equipment with a total value of $50,000, and motor vehicles that are worth $60,000. Our current assets include stock worth $7,000 plus $2,000 in cash. We are also owed $5,000 by various debtors. As for current liabilities, we still have an overdraft of $2,500, and we owe $800 to various creditors.
Lesson 4. Exercise C.
In the period from February to March, the following price changes were noted. The price of milk went up from $1.50 to $1.60 a quart, while the price of an 18-ounce container of yogurt stayed the same at $2.50. The price of a loaf of bread increased slightly from $3 to $3.05. Sugar also went up in price from $1 a pound to $1.05. The price of apples saw a 20-cent increase. A pound cost $2 in February and $2.10 in March. Tea also went up. The price of a box of 100 tea bags went from $2.20 to $2.30. The only item to go down in price was coffee. An 18-ounce can cost $4 in February and $3.50 in March.
Lesson 5. Exercise C.
So, what can you tell me about the different options for investing my money?
Well, there are a number of things you can do. Let's start with stocks and shares. The obvious advantage here is that you can make a lot of money quickly. But on the downside, you can lose all your money, including the principal. It can be risky.
I see. What about a more low-risk investment?
Okay, well, there are a couple of options here. You can invest in bonds. With bonds, you are guaranteed the return of your money along with promised interest payments. There is no risk. Of course, the disadvantage is that the returns are not very high. The same is true with other fixed interest investments. As with bonds, there are low levels of risk and guaranteed returns on your investment. But the returns are low, and generally, your investment is tied in for a fixed period of time.
What about property? Is that a good thing to invest my money in?
It can be. With property, there is the possibility of high returns, and it's a relatively safe investment as property generally holds its value, and you can borrow against the value of the property. One drawback is that you may have to spend money on the maintenance of the property. Its sale value will depend on its location and on the property market at the time of the sale.
I've heard of something called index futures. What can you tell me about them?
Ah, yes. Well, here there is the possibility of making large profits if prices move in the direction that you anticipated. Of course, you need to be well informed. Success depends on your ability to predict the direction of demand.
Lesson 6. Exercise C.
Hello everybody, I'm here to give you some information and advice about online trading in stocks, securities, etc. so that you can maximize your profits as an online trader while at the same time protecting yourself. The first essential step is to find out all you can about trading online before you begin. Do your homework as you would for any other type of investment that you plan to get involved in. Before you start, do comparative studies of the kinds of service available, and when you have found a broker, make sure that he or she is trustworthy by carrying out a safety check. This can be done online. You should find out what happens to your order after you have placed it. Bear in mind that you shouldn't expect instant placement just because you've sent the order to your broker. Don't be impatient. Wait for confirmation that your order has been received, or you may find yourself placing the order twice. As for how much you are prepared to invest, well, my advice is to set yourself some sort of limit. Be aware that the market price may take you into a range of prices where you hadn't intended to go.
Unit 5. Lesson 1. Exercise E. Speaker 1.
When I first came to the USA, everything was very strange. In China, people generally do not express their opinions so openly. We like to talk, but we are more reserved about our own opinions. I found American people very outspoken and so used to expressing themselves. I felt inadequate at first, and I was scared to open my mouth. I was surprised at the way students challenged their professors and how employees argued with their bosses. At first it seemed to me like a lack of respect for their superiors, but now I know it's normal. I also found the humor strange in the beginning, and I could never understand the jokes. But I'm adjusting to that, and even beginning to laugh at some of the jokes.
Speaker 2.
When you're in Saudi Arabia, it's very important to follow all the social and dress conventions. I always wear a long-sleeved shirt and often a jacket as well, even in the stifling heat. If my Saudi host removes his shoes going into a building, then I have to do the same. I have to remember never point at anybody, and under no circumstances eat with my left hand. Another thing I have to remember is not to sit with the sole of my shoe or my foot exposed.
Speaker 3.
Now I'm used to the Brazilian way of doing business, but it took some time. In Japan, we like to plan ahead, so setting up appointments a couple of weeks in advance is not a problem for us. However, what we do find strange is the way Brazilians touch you on the arm or on the back while talking to you. We Japanese are much more formal than this. and a lot of physical contact in public is not our style. Also, Brazilians are more relaxed and they tend to spend 15 minutes or so on small talk before starting a meeting. I find this a bit of a waste of time, but we have to observe their customs. I used to find it frustrating, but it does help to get to know people, and the meeting then usually runs more smoothly.
Speaker 4.
I find that many French people are very conscientious about dress, and so I have to make a bit of an effort because I think we Americans are more casual. Sometimes I find it a bit stifling because I like to take my jacket off and roll up my sleeves when getting down to business. The French don't do that, so I have to keep my jacket on in meetings. One thing that I find a bit irritating is the French attitude toward time. Compared with many Americans, they are quite casual about their timekeeping, so I don't try to pack too much into one day. For me, one of the biggest challenges has been improving my French. They definitely like you to try to speak the language, even if you can't conduct the whole meeting in French.
Speaker 5.
I find that Australian society is much more casual than Arab society. People dress in a very casual manner, even in the workplace. What is probably most different for me is the Australians' punctuality, as this is not one of the strong points of my culture. Australians also like to maintain strong eye contact, and this can sometimes make Arab people feel uncomfortable. Australians are friendly, but they are also very direct, and we are not used to this. In our culture, we like to preface business deals with small talk and inquiries about the other person's health and general chit-chat, but Australians prefer to get right to the point.
Lesson 2. Exercise B. Dave.
I used to think that it would be great to work in an open work environment. And don't get me wrong, there are many positive aspects to this kind of working environment. I find a lot of stimulation and motivation in communicating freely with a variety of ideas and hearing all the interesting ideas that come up during the day. The challenge of being involved in decision-making does keep you on your toes. However, the downside is that the physical open plan is often not so conducive to concentration. I find it difficult sometimes to get a lot accomplished because of the constant buzz and hustle and bustle around the place.
Marcia.
When I went for the interview for my current job, I was completely overwhelmed by the approach of the managing director. We were a group of 10 candidates interviewing for 5 positions. They put us all together in a room, and then when the MD walked in, he had a football under his arm. He tossed it to someone without saying anything. Afterwards, I realized that he was assessing 2 things: our reaction to a new and different approach, and our ability to operate as a team. Now that I understand the MD's approach, I really appreciate his ability to think logically, but also laterally.
Omar.
I really like my job. I mean the actual work that I do, because it's very challenging and I get to learn a lot. But the organizational culture of the company frustrates me very much. I know it's the type of system I grew up in, where those at the top controlled everything and made all the decisions. However, I have outgrown that, and I feel that as a professional, I should have the chance to give some input into decision-making, even if it's just to give my feedback on what's happening. I want more say, and I wish that not all authority was in the hands of just a few.
Lesson 2. Exercise F. A.
A much more flexible approach to management.
B.
Traditional business structures are changing.
C.
Nowadays, companies need.
D.
However, greater stress levels have developed.
E.
A new trend called convergence has recently emerged.
F.
Telephone calls can be recorded and saved.
G.
With the arrival of wireless technology.
Lesson 3. Exercise B. Marcus.
If I had the choice, I think I'd choose to work from home. I work for a high-tech company, and there are certain times in the month when I'm under a lot of pressure to meet deadlines. And then there are other times when I'm just sitting around with very little to do. But I have to come in and spend 8 hours a day here at the office, irrespective of the workload. If I worked at home, I could balance my work time to match the workload. Of course, there could be some complications working from home. I mean, things like powerful and reliable network connections, which are guaranteed at the office, but which might be more uncertain at home.
Paula. I work in human resources, and of course, a lot of my work is office-based. But I'd like to have the choice to do some work from home. I have 2 young children, and it would be helpful if I could work from home sometimes, particularly when they're at home sick. The other advantage of working from home is that I could eliminate the time that I spend commuting in the rush hour. On the other hand, there are definite advantages to working at the office. I have access to all the resources I need, and, of course, in my work, face-to-face meetings are very important. Jake.
My name is Jake, and I'm a manager at a large software company, and I can see the advantages and disadvantages of having people work from home. The company would certainly save money if some employees worked from home. We would save on office space, energy, security, and cleaning. We could just arrange some space when we need to get together for meetings. However, I have some reservations too. For example, it would be difficult to monitor and control people's work output. And of course, employees could have problems keeping the network up and running. I think we still have some way to go before we can have people operating from home. But I'm willing to experiment.
Lesson 4. Exercise B.
Enron Corporation was an American energy company based in Houston, Texas. Before its bankruptcy in late 2001, Enron employed around 21,000 people, and it was one of the world's leading electricity, natural gas, pulp and paper, and communications companies. Its claimed revenues in 2000 were $101 billion. Fortune magazine named Enron America's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years, from 1996 to 2001. Enron also appeared on Fortune's 100 Best Companies to Work For in America list for 2000. The Enron bankruptcy was the biggest in U.S. history to that date, and it cost 4,000 employees their jobs.
Lesson 5. Exercise E.
Before we even get to the product itself, we have to think about labor costs, especially in terms of outsourcing production to a cheaper location. After we've dealt with these concerns, we get closer to the production and marketing costs. In this industry, the cost of raw materials is a factor, though nowadays we have a lot of synthetic fabric, and so these costs can be controlled better. Probably more important than raw material costs are marketing costs. These include surveys to gauge new fashion trends and changes in people's tastes. Then we have to consider the competition, and that also takes time and money. Inflation is not such a major concern these days, as it is pretty much under control. Our production costs are more affected by health and safety regulations and by pollution control, as we have to invest quite a bit of money into these 2 areas.
Lesson 5. Exercise H.
As people involved in business, I think our greatest concern is the cost of energy. Think about it. In the mid-90s, oil was around $11 a barrel. Oil-producing countries felt that they were giving away their black gold for next to nothing. But just over a decade later, the price has increased by 700%. And income for the producers has increased accordingly. Of course, the price of oil is not an isolated thing. It's very much tied up with politics, and more recently, as we saw in New Orleans, with the weather. These are factors that you might think are not immediate concerns for business people, but these days, they're very much on our minds. At the end of the 20th century, oil was at a reasonable price of around $25 a barrel. But events like September 11th seriously affected prices, driving the price to $50 a barrel for the first time ever. Over the last 5 years, a combination of political crises and weather factors, particularly storms, have driven the price to unprecedented highs of $72 a barrel.
Lesson 6. Exercise C. Ethical companies are usually set up by people with certain beliefs and principles. The aim is to be profitable and to give people what they want, but without compromising these principles. These companies usually have strong beliefs regarding such issues as chemicals, organic food, the environment, animal testing, fair wages, and child labor. In the late 1990s, many investors, especially venture capitalists, began shouting for a return on their investments. For many of these ethical companies, going public was not a viable option. At the same time, the large multinationals saw the amazing growth and interest in organic and ethically traded goods. It was cheaper for them to buy an existing established ethical company than to set up their own. Lesson 6. Exercise D.
The Body Shop is a cosmetics company that was set up by Anita Roddick in the 1970s. What made it different from so many other cosmetics companies was that it did not deal in products that had been tested on animals. Recently, The Body Shop was sold to L'Oreal, a very large French company that doesn't adhere to the same principles as The Body Shop. Another product that followed the no animal testing principle was Tom's of Maine, a small company that makes toothpaste and other cosmetic and hygiene products. But it too has been bought by a much larger company, Colgate. A number of vegetarian and organic food companies that followed their principles strictly have also sold out to larger companies that may not adhere to the same principles. Linda McCartney's Whole Foods has been bought out by Hain Celestial, while Ben & Jerry's ice cream has been taken over by Unilever. Two other well-known companies that have also sold out are Green & Black's Chocolate, bought by Cadbury Schweppes, and the Adwala and Samantha Juice Companies, acquired by Coca-Cola. Stonyfield Farm Organic Yogurt, which always used organic milk in its products, has been acquired by the French company Groupe Danone.